Okay, this is a flipped classroom for poetry unit number 1. I'm going to take you through a few slides, reinforce some terms, all dealing with figurative language, and read some poetry. And there will be a Google form accompanying. So we're going to be building our literary terms inventory. Obviously, some of these will be familiar terms, but we're going to zip right through figurative lang, metaphor, simile, personification, apostrophe, metonymy, synecdoche, symbol, allegory, hyperbole, understatement, irony, paradox, oxymoron, sarcasm, and satire. Building that inventory. Oops. Just whether or not you're talking about the figure or the totality. Sorry about that. So, well, why use it? Well, a poet will say you can say so much more. English language is incredibly diverse, versatile, broad, and clearly some of us will want it to be more narrowly focused at times so that it can be less ambiguous. But for a poet, the multiplicity of meanings is not something to avoid, but to embrace. Metaphor, that most basic terms. So, can take one of 4 forms depending on whether the literal or the figurative term are respectively named or implied. There's that one, they're both named. There's when the literal is named, figurative is implied. There's when the literal is implied and the figurative is named. And then lastly, it's the one we see most infrequently, or least frequently, where both of them are simply implied. For example, when both the literal and figurative terms are named, this is the basic kind of metaphor. Her car is a dragon. Just flat out saying it. When the literal is named but the figurative is implied, her car breathes fire and smoke. Here, the breathes fire and smoke is implying dragon. Where the literal is implied and the figurative is named, she turned the key and started her dragon. Here, the she turned her key and started is implying car. And then lastly, where they're both just implied, her wheels breathe fire. Here, her wheels is synecdoche, implying the totality of the car, and breathe fire is implying dragonhood, of which I aspire. All right, so a metaphor and simile. We know these things. One's comparison, it can be implied. The simile is never implied, it's made directly. Like and as are the words that we most explicitly associate with simile, but I am taller than a building, not than, in that case, would be a simile. Or her breath is similar to stew. Is that a compliment? I don't think so. But similar to, resembles, seems, these are also words that could make a comparison, a direct comparison, a simile. So we're going to take a look at a couple of poems. One that exemplifies metaphor all over, and it's called Metaphor, and then that exemplifies similes all over. So this is a poem by Sylvia Plath. We'll be reading it in class, but it starts off, and let's see if we can count them. It's called Metaphors. We'll see how many metaphors we hear. I'm a riddle in 9 syllables, that's 1. I'm an elephant, that's 2. I'm a ponderous house, that's 3. I'm a melon strolling on 2 tendrils. That's 4. Can you see it? Oh, red fruit, ivory, fine timbers. An enigmatic line. This loaf's big with its yeasty rising. It implied, I'm a big loaf. Yeasty rising is now implying something within growing. Money's new minted in this fat purse, so she's calling herself a fat purse and there's something inside. New money. So I've lost count. That might be 6. I'm a means, 7. I'm a stage, 8. I'm a cow and calf, 9. I've eaten a bag of green apples. Boarded the train, there's no getting off. Now it is a riddle. There are 9 lines if you put the off up next to getting where it belongs. And there are 9 syllables in each line. So clearly the number 9 is important here. But it's a riddle. And the other poem, it is called Harlem. It's also called Dream Deferred sometimes. This is by Langston Hughes, and you might have heard it. It's a series of rhetorical questions followed by answers using similes. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? And that's the line from the poem that gives that great play its title. So, what is a raisin that's dried up in the sun? Well, it's a grape. You know, a grape dries up. Or fester like a sore and then run. Here, the sore is implying some sort of infection, and then it oozes. So, is a dream deferred like the pus that oozes? Ooh, it makes you better, but it's gross. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it stink like rotten meat? Here, fresh meat is what we like, or cooked meat. But rotten meat is just something to gag over. That is a dream deferred that's no good. Or to crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet. So if you were to pour syrup on a plate in a liquid form, after time it would, get hard. It would still contain that sweetness. And so that's a dream deferred that just shifts its form. Maybe the dream deferred, just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? So the last one is the metaphor. There's no simile involved. It's suggesting that a dream deferred is a ticking time bomb or some other such thing that might explode. And this poem foretells, it was written in the 1930s, it foretells or presages or predicts the civil rights to come, because there is a dream that I'm living it, the American dream, and deferred means to put off. Anyway, moving on. Personification, another term. We clearly know what it means. We've been using it for years, but personification is a kind of metaphor in which the thing that's always being compared to by giving it human attributes is a human. That's spelled U-M-A-N. Dawn creeps in on little feet. Does it really do that? So here is a poem that clearly makes use of personification. It's called Song of the Powers, and we'll be reading it. See if it rings familiar to you. Mine, said the stone, mine is the hour. I crush the scissors, such is my power. Stronger than wishes, my power alone. Mine, said the paper, mine are the words that smother the stone with imagined birds, reams of them flown from the mind of the shaper. So we got stone, we got scissors, we got paper. Yeah, that's right. We're playing rock, paper, scissors, or stone, paper, scissors. And each of them, if you can see the ellipsis there, will have a chance to be a speaker of this very friendly, violent children's game. Personification, stone, paper. Scissors gets the next stanza, in case you're wondering. Here is a poem that exemplifies both personification and extended metaphor. The essential metaphor is that just like a mother to a child, or perhaps a parent to a child, is the same relationship as an author to his or her writing, an author to her book. And Anne Bradstreet wrote it. Thou ill-formed offspring of my feeble brain, who after birth didst by my side remain, till snatched from thence by friends less wise than true, who thee abroad exposed to public view. Oh, I hate it when other people read my writing. The stakes. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Made thee in rags, halting to the press to trudge, where errors were not lessons, all may judge. At thy return my blushing was not small, my rambling brat, in print now, should mother call. I cast thee by as one unfit for light, the visage was so irksome in my sight. Yet, being mine own, at length affection would thy blemishes amend, if so I could. So the book has gone out to publishers and it's come back with criticism, but it's still the writer's writing. I washed thy face and edited thy lines, but more defects I saw, and rubbing off a spot, still made a flaw. I stretched thy joints to make thee even feet, a pun on the feet of a line in meter. Yet still thou runn'st more hobbling than is meet. Meter. In better dress to trim thee was on my mind, but naught save homespun cloth in the house I find. In this array mongst vulgars may thou roam, in critic's hand beware thou dost not come, and take thy way where yet thou art not known. If for thy father asked, say thou hadst none, and for thy mother, she alas is poor, which caused her thus to send thee out the door. So even after the anguish and the fear of letting this author's writing be considered and criticized because she's got bills to pay, she sends the little poem or whatever it is that she's written out the door. Apostrophe will be our last term, I think, for the day. Or maybe not. Apostrophe is linked to personification. It is simply the addressing of someone absent or dead or something non-human, as if that thing were present and alive and could reply to what is being said. Oh, computer, come over by my side. All right, here's the poem that exemplifies apostrophe. It's called Bright Star by the Romantic poet John Keats. Keats says, Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art. He's setting the whole thing up as the speaker looking up into the night sky, seeing a star that has been as steadfast every night. It's in the same place. And here we have the speaker yearning to have that same strength of character. We'll read the rest of it in class. That's apostrophe for you. Metonymy and Synecdoche. So, metonymy is a subgroup of metaphor. Synecdoche is also a subgroup of metaphor, but it's also a subgroup of metonymy. So, umbrella group, figurative language. Underneath that, metaphor. Underneath that, we've got simile and personification, and metonymy and synecdoche. So metonymy is the use of something closely related for the thing actually meant. For example, the White House supports the bill. Now, literally, this wouldn't make much sense, but the White House is closely associated with the presidency, and it's the president or the presidency that supports the bill. Synecdoche is the use of a part, literal part, for the whole. His parents bought him a new set of wheels. Here, the set of wheels which are attached to the car imply the whole car. Although, of course, they could be taken literally, and it's just a set of wheels, which isn't really much good if you don't have a car. Here are just a couple of other examples. So the suits on Wall Street walked off with most of our savings. Here, the suits, that's synecdoche for businessmen. Wall Street, that is metonymy associated with the business industry. You can't fight City Hall. City Hall, again, metonymy for local government. When Mark Antony said, lend me your ear, ear. Now it's interesting. I mean, is ear technically part of the hearing apparatus? I think it probably is. So that would make it synecdoche. But if it's just associated with it, then technically it would be metonymy. Hardly ever will you really be asked to distinguish between metonymy and synecdoche because frequently the line is pretty blurry. The last one in that column, the pen is mightier than the sword. There's lots of figurative language happening here. The pen, it's a part of literature. It's associated with literature. Yes, but now we write with our fingers on computers, and so maybe it doesn't work anymore. The than makes this a simile. And the sword, yeah, back in the day we fought with swords, but now we just take an AK-47 or, I don't know, a tactical nuclear weapon. The pen is mightier than a tactical nuclear weapon. Well, maybe, maybe not. There's a couple of others. Can you recognize the figurative language? I say that Jane, she's witty. All right, next slide. I think we're coming to the end. This exemplifies synecdoche. There's a poem called The Hand That Signed the Paper by Dylan Thomas. It's giving sovereign power to the hand as opposed to the individual king or sovereign or dictator. So the hand that signed the paper felled a city. 5 sovereign fingers taxed the breath, doubled the globe of dead and halved a country. These 5 kings did a king to death. So the synecdoche here is that in the individual finger or the collective hand is the identity of the one with the power to do these things.